Hi, everybody. I got a super cool question from one of your classmates about the motivational interviewing assignment, and I thought that I would make a video uh, in order to help out a little bit with this question that I think many of you have. So basically, the question was around um, how do I build rapport with a client when without making it feel like I'm, their coach or facilitator. And I think if you review the feedback that I've graded all the motivational interviewing assignments that I have, and if you review the feedback, um, a lot of it is around kind of doing less, right? A lot of it is around, following the oars. And, if that doesn't sound familiar to you, you need to go back and look again at the materials that you were given to support your motivational interviewing assignment. But leaving space for those open-ended questions and those affirmations and all of that stuff. And the way to create rapport is to do less, is to utilize those techniques in your interview, and then to leave space for the client to talk. If you are talking as much as the client or almost as much as the client, you are doing too much. Okay, so motivational interviews are a little bit of an exercise in doing a lot while doing very little. You are prompting the client to come up with their own solutions, to define their own problem, to explore their own problem, and to define solutions by doing very little. We are asking very open questions that kind of lead them down their own path, and then we're following them where they go. And it is that process of following them where they go with sort of like gentle course corrections to get through those steps that builds the rapport. Okay. There is nothing more toxic to building rapport than problem solving. Okay, so if you immediately jump into problem solving, you have not only kind of missed the point of what a motivational interview is, you've also taken away the power from that client to solve their own issues, right? And motivational interviewing is all about giving the client the power to solve their own problems. And when we try to solve their problems for them, not only do we tend to not get there, right? We tend to not get to a problem solving, conclusion that they will implement. Even when we get somewhere where they're like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, often they don't follow through. And the reason why they don't follow through is because they didn't go through that process of coming up with it themselves. They didn't go through that process of thinking like, oh, right. I've thought of like, oh, light bulb moment. I've thought of how I'm going to solve this. I've thought of what the solution would be that works for me. Because, if we're throwing solutions at them without figuring out how they conceptualize the problem, how they're supported in their lives through the people around them. Very few of you asked about social support, right? But we rarely, if ever, solve any problems in our lives without the support of people around us. So it's important to ask that question. Like if they are not allowed to think through what it is that they've already done to solve the problem, or even why is this a problem that we're talking about right now? What is bringing this up right now? Okay, so exploring those questions in an open-ended way. None of those are yes or no questions, right? So exploring those questions in an open-ended way, that's what builds your rapport, right? Sitting back and doing way more listening than you do talking, that's what builds rapport. Another thing that builds rapport is finding the right energy to bring to an interview. So if the person that you're interviewing is really, really high energy, if they're kind of vibrating at a really high frequency, you want to bring kind of a calming energy to that space. You don't want to do that thing where like you're like, okay, let's talk now. No, you don't want to do that. But you want to like bring it down a couple of notches, you want to bring your natural energy to a situation. But if the person that you're talking to is really vibrating at a high level, you want to bring down a couple of levels, okay? And on the other side of that, if the person that you're talking to, if the client that you're talking to is say very depressed, and they're bringing very little energy to the conversation, and you're having a hard time getting stuff done. You're asking open-ended questions, but they're not really giving you open-ended answers. They're not really taking the leads. They're not really going forth with the interview. Then you want to bring your own energy a little bit down, but not all the way down to where they are, okay? Because you want to make them feel seen by like being in the same kind of room with them. You don't want to give them the impression that you're in a different interview than they are. But at the same time, you want to be able to encourage them to fill that space up between you. There's a space in the interview between you. And if you're filling it with your high energy, there's no space for them. But if you have really low energy and they have really low energy, nobody's filling that space. So like coming at it and drawing it out a little bit is good, but you don't want to take that too far, okay? So you want to use your energy to kind of help them fill that space, right? So that's another way to build rapport. Okay, I hope that answers that question and that it helps, other folks kind of figure that out too. Okay, thank you.